Stop. Before you do anything else this morning, I need you to hear this. What you are about to learn in the next few minutes has the potential to save your life, or the life of someone sitting right next to you, not tomorrow, not someday, this morning. Because what most people do in the very first 30 seconds after waking up is quietly, silently, dangerously increasing their risk of a heart attack. And the shocking part? Almost nobody talks about it, almost nobody warns you, and almost every single person you know is doing it right now. I spent months researching, reading through cardiology journals, speaking with health professionals, and collecting real stories from real people who had no idea their morning routine was a ticking time bomb. And by the end of this video, you are going to look at your mornings completely differently. You might even pause this video, walk to the next room, and tell someone you love to watch it too. Because this is that important, let me start with a story. His name was James. He was 49 years old, a father of 3, a man who ran his own business, went to the gym twice a week, didn't smoke, didn't drink much. By every external standard, James was healthy. He wasn't overweight. His last checkup was fine. His doctor told him he was in good shape for his age. And yet, on a cold Thursday morning in November, James woke up, grabbed his phone off the nightstand before he had even fully opened his eyes, began scrolling through his emails, sat up abruptly, swung his legs off the bed, and walked to the bathroom to brush his teeth. He felt a strange tightness in his jaw. He ignored it. He thought it was tension. He made his coffee, strong, no water first, and drove to work. He never made it. He pulled over on the highway and paramedics found him in his car. He had suffered a massive heart attack at 7:18 in the morning. James survived, but barely, and when he lay in the recovery ward, his cardiologist, a woman who had spent 22 years studying cardiovascular events, sat down beside him and asked him to describe his morning in detail, minute by minute, habit by habit. And as James described those first 30 minutes after waking up, she nodded slowly, because she had heard this story before. Many times, because the morning is not just a time of day. For your heart, the morning is a battlefield. And most people walk onto that battlefield completely unarmed, completely unaware, doing exactly the things that make catastrophic cardiac events more likely. So let's start at the beginning. Let's start with what happens to your body while you sleep, because understanding this changes everything. When you're sleeping, your entire cardiovascular system enters a state of reduced activity. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your blood vessels relax and widen. The demands on your heart are minimal. It is the closest your cardiovascular system ever gets to genuine rest. And during those quiet, nighttime hours, there is something else happening too. Your blood, the liquid flowing through every vessel in your body, becomes slightly more concentrated, slightly thicker, slightly more prone to clotting. This happens naturally during sleep. It is part of normal human biology. It is not a disease. But it is important, because thicker, more concentrated blood is harder to pump. It creates more friction inside your arteries. And if those arteries have any kind of narrowing, any build-up of plaque on their inner walls, which studies suggest affects far more people than we realize, including people who feel perfectly healthy, that thicker morning blood moving through narrowed passages creates the conditions for something catastrophic to happen. Now add to this what happens the moment you begin to wake up. Your body does not ease gently into wakefulness. It surges. There is a powerful hormonal event called the cortisol awakening response. In the minutes and hours before you even open your eyes, your adrenal glands begin releasing cortisol, the primary stress hormone, in a sharp morning surge. This is not a small, subtle shift. This is a dramatic biological event. Your blood pressure begins to climb, your heart rate increases, your blood vessels start to constrict slightly. Your body is preparing itself for the demands of a new day, and all of this is perfectly natural. All of this is how humans have always woken up. But here is the critical point, and this is where modern life has created a genuinely dangerous mismatch. The way we now behave in those first few waking minutes is completely out of step with what our cardiovascular system needs during this fragile, high-risk transition. And the mismatch is killing people. The single most dangerous habit, the 30-second morning mistake that cardiologists keep warning about, is this: reaching for your phone the moment you wake up. Think about your own morning. Be honest with yourself. When your alarm goes off, or when you naturally open your eyes, what is the first thing you reach for? For the vast majority of people in the modern world, the answer is a smartphone. And within 30 seconds, sometimes within 10 seconds, they are staring at a screen, scrolling through notifications, reading news headlines, checking emails, seeing messages. And every single one of those inputs is doing something to your already elevated, already stressed morning cardiovascular system that is genuinely medically dangerous. Here is what happens physiologically in those 30 seconds. Your eyes receive blue light from the screen, which immediately signals to your brain that it is time to be alert, suppressing melatonin and pushing your nervous system towards a more aroused, activated state. Your brain begins processing information, and information, especially anything emotionally charged like news or stressful messages, immediately triggers the release of adrenaline on top of the cortisol that is already surging. Your blood pressure, which was already climbing during the cortisol awakening response, spikes further. Your heart rate increases faster than it should at this stage of waking. Your blood vessels constrict more sharply, and your blood, already thicker from overnight dehydration, is now being pushed through narrower passages at higher pressure by a heart that is working significantly harder than it needs to be. A landmark study from the University of California followed over 1,000 adults and found that people who checked their phones within the first 10 minutes of waking up had measurably higher morning cortisol levels than people who waited even 30 minutes before picking up their devices. Higher cortisol, higher blood pressure, higher cardiovascular strain, all of this before they had even gotten out of bed, before they had had a glass of water, before they had taken a single step. And if those people had any degree of arterial plaque, even mild subclinical undetected plaque, that combination of elevated cortisol, adrenaline, blood pressure surge, and thick clot-prone blood is exactly the environment in which arterial plaques can rupture. And a ruptured plaque creates a clot, and a clot that blocks an artery feeding the heart is, by medical definition, a heart attack. But the phone is not the only danger. It is the first, and perhaps the most universal. But there are others that compound the risk every single morning for millions of people. And if you are doing more than one of them simultaneously, which most people are, the cumulative cardiovascular stress in those first 30 minutes is genuinely alarming. The second dangerous morning habit is one that you might never have considered a health risk at all. It is the way most people physically get out of bed. Think about how you do it. Your alarm goes off, you reach for your phone, you scroll for a moment, and then, still groggy, still half asleep, you abruptly push yourself upright and swing your legs off the bed in one fast movement. You go from horizontal to vertical in seconds. And here is what that does to your cardiovascular system. When you are lying flat, blood is distributed relatively evenly throughout your body. Your heart doesn't have to work against gravity to deliver blood to your brain and organs. The moment you stand up, gravity instantly pulls a large volume of blood downward, toward your legs and your lower body. Your blood pressure at the level of your head drops suddenly and sharply. This is a normal, predictable physiological event called orthostatic change. Your body has mechanisms to handle it. Your heart is supposed to compensate quickly by pumping harder and faster, and your blood vessels are supposed to constrict to maintain pressure. But here is the dangerous reality. In the morning, during the cortisol surge, with thicker blood, with an already stressed cardiovascular system, that compensatory response is slower, less efficient, more strained, and the effort your heart makes to overcome that sudden gravitational challenge represents a significant spike in cardiac workload, right at the moment when cardiac workload is already at its daily peak. Cardiologists call this the morning blood pressure surge. Research has consistently shown that this surge is associated with significantly increased risk of both heart attack and stroke, and it's made worse by every other stressor that is already present in the morning window. There is a third habit that many people would never guess is related to heart attack risk at all, and it happens in the bathroom. Specifically, it is the act of straining during a bowel movement. This sounds almost comically mundane for a conversation about heart attacks, but cardiologists are extremely serious about it because there are documented, published cases of cardiac events triggered by this exact combination of morning physiological vulnerability and straining. When you strain during a bowel movement, you perform what is called a Valsalva maneuver. You hold your breath, close your glottis, and forcibly contract your abdominal muscles. This dramatically increases the pressure inside your chest. That increased thoracic pressure temporarily reduces the amount of blood returning to your heart. Your heart, receiving less blood to pump, adjusts. And then, when you stop straining, a sudden rush of blood floods back into the heart. This rapid pressure change, in and out, creates a jarring cardiovascular event. The heart, already under morning stress, already pumping thicker blood through potentially narrowed arteries, experiences a sudden extra demand that can, in vulnerable individuals, trigger a cascade leading to a cardiac event. This is not hypothetical, this is in the medical literature. People have died from heart attacks on the toilet in the morning, after rushing to the bathroom right after waking up. Now let's talk about coffee, because the morning coffee habit is deeply ingrained in almost every culture on Earth, and there is nothing inherently wrong with coffee. Research actually suggests that moderate coffee consumption may have cardiovascular benefits over time, but the timing and sequence of morning coffee consumption is where the danger lies. When you wake up, as we have established, you are already dehydrated. Your blood is already thicker than it should be. Your cortisol is already surging. Your cardiovascular system is already under elevated stress. And what does the vast majority of the world do? They walk into the kitchen and make coffee. Before drinking water, before eating anything, straight coffee on an empty, dehydrated stomach. And what does caffeine do in that environment? It is a stimulant. It raises blood pressure further. It increases heart rate further. It is also a mild diuretic, meaning it encourages your kidneys to excrete more fluid. So not only are you not rehydrating your thick morning blood, you are actively making it thicker. You are adding another layer of cardiovascular stress on top of the cortisol, the phone-induced adrenaline spike, the orthostatic blood pressure surge, and the morning dehydration. For a person with healthy, clean arteries and no underlying cardiovascular vulnerabilities, most of these individual stressors are manageable. The body is resilient. But here is the devastating truth. You almost certainly do not know with complete certainty how healthy your arteries are. You cannot feel arterial plaque. You cannot see it. You cannot sense it building up over years of inflammation and oxidative stress. Many people who have significant arterial disease feel absolutely fine right up until the morning they don't. Let's pause and let that sit for a moment. because this is the part that I find most haunting, most important. About this entire conversation. The people who are most at risk from these morning habits are very often the people who have absolutely no idea they are at risk. They are not the stereotypical heart attack patient, overweight, sedentary, obviously unhealthy. They are people like James, like your neighbour, like your father, like you. The silent, cumulative nature of cardiovascular disease means that damage can build over decades before it becomes visible. And every morning is either a gentle, protective transition for your heart or a series of compounding cardiovascular assaults. It is one or the other every single day for the rest of your life. Now I want to talk about something that connects all of these morning risk factors, something that ties them together at a deeper biological level, and that is inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood by cardiologists and researchers to be the central mechanism underlying most cardiovascular disease. It is inflammation that causes arterial walls to become damaged and vulnerable. It is inflammation that allows LDL cholesterol to embed itself in those walls and form plaque. It is inflammation that makes plaques unstable and prone to rupturing. And inflammation is not caused by one thing. It is caused by a pattern of chronic stresses over time: poor sleep, poor diet, chronic stress, physical inactivity. And yes, the repeated daily assault of morning cardiovascular stress, created by a phone in one hand, strong coffee in the other, jumping out of bed and rushing into the day. Each of these individual habits inflames. Each one, taken alone, might not be catastrophic. But taken together, morning after morning, year after year, they create the inflamed, unstable arterial environment in which sudden cardiac events occur. There is research from Harvard Medical School showing that the hours between 6 a.m. and noon represent the period of highest cardiovascular risk during the entire 24-hour cycle. Heart attacks are statistically more likely to occur in the morning than at any other time. Not slightly more likely, significantly more likely. Some studies put the elevated morning risk at 2 to 3 times higher than the rest of the day, and the biological mechanisms we have just discussed explain exactly why. This is not a coincidence. This is cardiovascular biology colliding with modern human behavior in a way that is genuinely, measurably lethal for many people every single year. But now, and this is where I want you to feel something shift, let's talk about what you can do. Because everything I have just described is preventable. Every single risk factor I have named can be mitigated, reduced, or eliminated by making different choices in those first 30 minutes of your morning. And these choices do not require expensive supplements. They do not require waking up at 5 a.m. and doing an hour of yoga. They require knowledge, which you now have, and a willingness to form new habits that protect the most important muscle in your body. The very first change, and I cannot stress this enough, is to remove the phone from the equation for the first 30 minutes of your morning. This is not a suggestion about mental health or productivity, though it benefits both. This is a cardiovascular prescription. When you wake up, your brain and your heart both need a buffer before being exposed to any emotionally activating information. That buffer allows your cortisol surge to begin naturally moderating. It allows your heart rate and blood pressure to rise gradually and appropriately, rather than spiking sharply in response to external stress stimuli. Use those first minutes in silence, or with calm music, or simply with your thoughts. Look out a window, stretch gently while still in bed. Do nothing at all. This is not laziness. This is medicine. The second change is to rehydrate before anything else. Keep a glass or bottle of water on your nightstand. Before you stand up, before coffee, before food, before your phone, before your shower, drink at least a full glass of water. 250 to 300 milliliters is ideal. This begins the process of thinning your overnight concentrated blood, reducing the viscosity and friction that make your morning cardiovascular system work so hard. It is simple, it is free, it is one of the most impactful things you can do for your heart in the morning, and it takes approximately 20 seconds. The third change is how you get out of bed. Stop jumping up. Seriously, stop treating your bed like a starting block. When you wake up and you are ready to rise, spend 60 seconds doing gentle movements while still lying down. Rotate your ankles, flex and extend your feet, move your legs slowly. These small movements begin activating your circulatory system, encouraging blood flow to return from your lower extremities before the gravitational challenge of standing. Then roll slowly onto your side. Then sit on the edge of the bed. Then pause there for another 30 seconds before standing. This entire sequence takes 2 minutes, and it transforms the morning blood pressure surge from a cardiovascular assault into a managed, gradual transition that your heart can handle safely and easily. The fourth change is your breathing. Right now, as you read or listen to this, you are probably breathing in a normal, relatively shallow way. Most adults breathe 12 to 20 times per minute at rest, using mostly the upper chest. And in the morning, especially with cortisol and stress hormones already elevated, that breathing pattern tends to become even shallower and faster. Deep diaphragmatic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the opposite of the fight-or-flight response. It tells your heart to slow down. It signals your blood vessels to relax. It actively and measurably reduces blood pressure. And you can begin doing this the moment you are conscious. You don't need to get out of bed. You don't need any equipment. You simply breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold gently for a count of 2, and exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this for just 5 cycles. It takes less than 2 minutes, and you will have meaningfully altered your morning cardiovascular environment in a way that is protective and healing rather than stressful and damaging. Research from multiple institutions has confirmed that slow, controlled morning breathing consistently reduces morning blood pressure surge in both healthy individuals and those with diagnosed hypertension. The fifth change involves sunlight. I know this might seem disconnected from heart attack risk, but stay with me. Your circadian rhythm, the internal biological clock that governs virtually every physiological process in your body, including your cortisol rhythm and your cardiovascular function, is calibrated primarily by light. When you expose your eyes to natural outdoor light, within the first 30 minutes of waking, you send a powerful signal to your brain that anchors your cortisol awakening response appropriately. It peaks at the right time, at the right level, and then begins to taper as the day goes on. When you deny yourself that light, staying indoors, keeping curtains drawn, staring at an artificial screen instead, your cortisol rhythm becomes dysregulated. It stays elevated longer than it should. Your cardiovascular system remains in a state of heightened arousal for more of the day. Over time, chronically dysregulated cortisol is one of the most consistent predictors of cardiovascular disease that researchers have identified. Something as simple as stepping outside for 5 minutes, or even sitting by a bright open window in the morning, can meaningfully improve the hormonal and cardiovascular environment of your entire day. I want to come back to James for a moment, because his story did not end in that hospital bed. He spent 3 weeks in recovery, he had surgery, he made changes, and in the years that followed, he became one of the most vocal advocates for morning cardiovascular health that his community had ever seen. He told his story at his children's schools. He told it to colleagues and friends. He told it to his aging parents, who had been doing the exact same morning habits for decades. His cardiologist told me, in the way these stories always get passed along, that what struck her most about James was not his illness. It was his response to learning that something so simple, so mundane, so completely unimpressive-looking as the first 30 minutes of his morning had quietly been setting the stage for his near-death experience for years. He said, "If someone had just told me, I would have changed it in a heartbeat. No one ever told me. That is why this video exists, because no one tells you. Your doctor has 8 minutes for your annual checkup. Your school never taught you what happens to your cardiovascular system when you wake up. The news doesn't run segments on morning cortisol and arterial plaque stability." And so people continue, morning after morning, decade after decade, doing the exact things that cardiologists quietly worry about, not knowing, because no one told them. I want to give you one more thing before we close. I want to give you the warning signs, because even if you change every habit starting tomorrow, it is vital that you know what to watch for in the morning, in yourself and in the people you love. The symptoms of a heart attack in the early morning hours are not always the dramatic, clutching the chest moment you see in movies. Many morning cardiac events begin subtly, a heaviness or pressure in the chest that feels like indigestion, an unusual ache in the left arm, shoulder or jaw, unexpected shortness of breath while doing something you normally do with ease, a strange sense of dread or unease that feels disproportionate to the situation, cold, sweating in the morning without physical exertion, nausea that seems to come from nowhere. Any of these symptoms, particularly in the morning hours, should be taken seriously, not tomorrow, not after coffee, now. Emergency services exist for exactly this reason, and calling them promptly is the single most important action you can take if you experience these signs. Time is muscle. Every minute that blood supply to the heart is reduced, more cardiac tissue dies. The people who survive morning heart attacks with minimal damage are, very often, the people who recognized what was happening and acted fast. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today. Your heart has been beating for you every single minute of your entire life. It has beaten through every joy and every grief, every victory and every defeat, every ordinary Tuesday and every extraordinary moment you have ever lived. It has never asked for a day off. It has never paused to rest. It has simply kept beating. For you, for the people who love you, for all the mornings you still have left. And in those first 30 minutes of every morning, you have the ability to either honor that extraordinary faithfulness, to give your heart the gentle, nourishing transition it needs, or to pile unnecessary, preventable stress onto a system that is already working as hard as it possibly can. Put the phone down, drink the water, rise slowly, breathe deeply, step into the light. These are not difficult things. They are not expensive things. They are not time-consuming things. They are the things that cardiologists wish everyone knew. They are the things that James wishes someone had told him before that Thursday morning in November. And now you know them. So please, share this, not because it makes a good share, but because someone in your life is probably doing every one of these morning mistakes right now, and they deserve to know what you now know. Their heart deserves the same chance that yours does. Subscribe if this video reached you, because the next one might be just as important. And take care of your heart. You only get one.